All right, guys, let's talk about my top 5 smartphones for 300 bucks. There's going to be a lot of shopping guides that people are going to be putting out that's going to be crazy expensive. You guys know how I do on this channel. I'm going to give you guys some awesome performance phones that are also, fairly cheap at around $300. Not cheap, but kind of cheap. All right, so the LG V60 did a crazy price drop. The same version that I have, the T-Mobile version, is now 300 bucks on Amazon. That is an absolute steal. I got the phone like almost close to like 450 when I bought it, so you're getting this for an excellent price. Now it's pretty much still a flagship phone with also a lot of very unique features. It has a really like crazy tank design. It just feels like a tank. It's a very premium feeling phone. Aluminum frame, glass back, IP68 dust and water resistant as well. And yeah, it just feels really awesome in the hand. Now this thing has a massive POLED display at 6.8 inches, so it is a pretty big phone with an HDR10 plus display. It's 1080p 395 for the PPI. Overall, I really like the display. It's fairly bright and it's very color accurate, and like I said, very big phone here. It does have Android 11. This is scheduled to get the Android 12 update as far as we know until we hear otherwise. We do have the Snapdragon 865 on here and the Adreno 650 on here, and this is still a powerhouse. If you check out my gaming test, this pretty much blows through any game that you can play. So Call of Duty, PUBG, Fortnite. It can play all those at high settings, no problem. And overall, it's just a crazy performance phone, especially if you throw the dual screen case on here for an additional 100 bucks. You can find them on eBay and stuff like that. And yeah, you have micro SD support, 128 gigs of internal storage, and 8 gigs of RAM on that base model. Now, the cameras on the V60 are pretty good. You have a triple camera setup, a 64 megapixel standard, a 13 megapixel ultra wide, and then a 0.3 depth sensor. You do have on here 8K video at 30 frames, and then a 10 megapixel selfie cam that shoots in 4K. I think the photos still look really good, and you get some really good detail, also good dynamic range, and like I said, the ultra wide is pretty close to the main lens as well as far as color. And yeah, I just love the natural colors here, so I think anybody taking pictures on here will not be disappointed. And like I said, you also get that crazy 8K. I'm actually really impressed with the selfie cam still on here. I think it's still awesome. You do have on here crazy stereo speakers. I mean, just excellent mids and highs, great thumping bass. It is a very loud speaker setup here, and we also have a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack, and it has a quad DAC as well. So if you have a high quality pair of headphones, you'll really love this phone. You also have NFC on here as a under the display fingerprint sensor, which isn't the best that I've ever had, but it does work, so I don't have an issue with it. Per se. Another area where the V50 or the V60 does shine is the 5,000 milliamp battery. So this phone does have a massive battery, and it does really great with standby time. And for a light user or even a heavier user, you can definitely get through a day. A light user easily 2 days of battery life on here, and you do have wireless charging on board. The V60 is definitely an awesome device to consider. Alright, so next is the iPhone XR. This is another awesome device, and I think this phone is definitely going to see a price cut by next year. I can easily see this coming down to that 270 mark. Right now it's at like 320, and I'll have all the links down below. But I really like the iPhone XR. I think it's a very good entry level sort of iPhone if you want still a very powerful experience. It's got an aluminum frame, it's got a glass back, and IP67 dust and water resistant. Now you do have a 6.1 inch Retina IPS display on here. It is a 720p plus display, 326 for the PPI. The display is sharp, it is fairly bright, and overall it's fine for most people. I didn't really have an issue with it. Now you do have iOS 15 on here with the Apple A12 chip, so that is very essential with this phone because it's very powerful. Any game that I threw at it, it was able to play. It's able to play PUBG at high settings. So this is still a very powerful and very smooth phone. So whether you're bouncing in and out of applications, multitasking, I really did not see jitters and hiccups with this phone. And like I said, very powerful. So this should get updates for at least another 2 to 3 years, if not more, because you got to remember the 6S is still on iOS 15 as well. So you do have 64 gigs of internal storage and 3 gigs of RAM on the base model. The stereo speakers are actually pretty loud, pretty good bass quality. So I was really impressed with that. You also have NFC on board with your Apple Pay Face ID works flawlessly on this phone as you would expect, and also the cameras on here. So here's the thing about the cameras: it's a 12 megapixel standard with 4K video at 24, 30, 60, but that's it. So most modern phones have at least an ultra wide or a telephoto or something like that. So if you're okay with just having a standard camera, I think this is perfectly fine. The shots that I took were actually very good. I was pretty impressed with the stills on here. You also have a 7 megapixel selfie cam as well, shoots in 1080p 60. So as far as image quality and video goes, I actually think it does an above average job. The only issue, like I said, is those who are needing an ultra wide or telephoto, you're going to be missing out on that. So the 10R actually has pretty decent battery life. Now mine is on, I think, like 89% battery health, and I'm able to get 6 hours of screen on time pretty easily with this phone. So yeah, I think battery life is fine for your average person that's not like gaming crazy on here. You do have wireless charging on board as well, so the 10R is also a very good option, guys. Next is the Galaxy S10 Plus. This phone is just crazy for the price right now. So we have an aluminum frame on here, glass back on here, IP68 dust and water resistant. I think the design still looks pretty good, and really all of the S series phones you can honestly kind of throw on this list. But this is the most like expensive one. The rest of them you can get for much cheaper than 300 now. But the S10 Plus has a pretty nice display, the dynamic AMOLED display at HDR10 Plus, 6.4 inches, full 1440p or 2K display, 522 for the PPI. Just an awesome panel, super sharp, just a really beautiful panel, very color accurate. And the thing about the panel is it does have the double punch hole for the wide camera, which I actually grew to like, because as a wallpaper fan, I had a lot of fun picking out wallpapers for all of the S, series phones. So this one had some really nice wallpaper choices. Now this phone is upgradable to the Android 12 update. I think the beta is going to come out, I think, next month. So I'll be looking for that for all of my S10 series phones. So we do have that coming in the Snapdragon 855, Adreno 640 on here, micro SD support, 128 gigs of internal storage, 6 or 8 gigs of RAM. I have the 8 gig RAM version. Basically, performance on here is going to be a beast. It really, compared to, if you guys check out my video against like an iPhone 13, speed wise, it keeps up speed wise. It does not really lag at all for me. And like I said, very powerful for gaming. All these Snapdragon 855 phones are actually pretty powerful for gaming, so it can pretty much max and play everything out. It even played Fortnite at 60 frames, which I thought was really impressive. So performance wise, you're not really missing out on anything with the S10 Plus here. So the additional features you get with this phone are pretty nice. You do have really nice sounding stereo speakers, great bass, very clear sound. The headphone jack is actually still on board. NFC is on board. The fingerprint scanner is under the display. It actually works really fast. It's just a tap to open fingerprint scanner, so I was really impressed with that. Desktop support, or Samsung DeX support, is on here, as well as NFC. So all your little bells and whistles are on this phone. The wireless power sharing, I mean, it really is like spec'd out. It has everything you could really want in a flagship phone. Image quality is also pretty good on the S10 Plus. It's got a triple camera setup, a 12 megapixel standard, a 12 megapixel telephoto, 16 megapixel ultra wide that shoots in 4K 60, along with a 10 megapixel wide. And then you have the wide camera for the group selfies as well, 4K 60 for that front camera. And overall, it's just going to give you very nice and crisp and clear images. Now, of course, it's not going to give you like the S21 Ultra, but I think the images are fine, especially for the price you're paying. I think it's definitely on board with that. So image quality is pretty good on the S10 Plus. Now, what makes the S10 Plus a great device is definitely the 4100 milliamp battery. It's the biggest battery out of the S10 series, so you're going to get the best battery life with this phone. You definitely can get all day battery life. In addition, you have 15-watt charging with wireless charging at 15 watts, and then, like I said, the reverse wireless charging. So definitely consider the S10 Plus. Very powerful phone. Alright, next is the Samsung Galaxy Note 10 or Note 10 Plus if you want the bigger version. I will be picking the Note 10 Plus up for you guys. But the Note 10 is an awesome phone because it's a smaller and it fits in my hand a little bit better. But you do have on here a full premium design. I think one of my favorite designs of all time, at least like top 2, top 3. It's just a really nice looking phone here. Aluminum frame, glass back, IP68 dust and water resistant. You already know with the Note, if you want a phone with a stylus because you're into digital artwork, or you just want something built in because you like to navigate with your, the stylus, the Note series is definitely a great device to go for. You have a beautiful display on here with a crazy screen to bezel ratio, almost 91% at 6.3 inches. It's dynamic AMOLED at HDR10. Beautiful color accurate display, 1080p, 401 for the PPI. It does have a slight curve to it, but I haven't had any problems with accidental touches. This is pretty much in the same boat with the S10 Plus. It will be getting the Android 12 update with the One UI 4, Snapdragon 855, Adreno 640. Again, a beast of a performer when it comes to gaming. It's able to play pretty much any game still at high settings. It really doesn't miss a beat, does not lag. It's just a really fast and powerful phone. You do have 256 gigs of internal storage and 8 gigs of RAM on the Note 10, which is awesome. Ton of storage for that price point. Also, the stereo speakers are on board, super loud, very crisp and clear. This one does not have a headphone jack, so do note that. And you also have NFC on board. Under the display, fingerprint sensor is here, and it works very fast. The desktop support and wireless desktop support is on this phone as well. So image quality is pretty good on here. 12 megapixel standard, 12 megapixel telephoto, 16 megapixel ultra wide, 4K 60, 4K 60 on the front, 10 megapixel selfie. Basically, still excellent images. And guys, you would be surprised at how much closer like these older Galaxy phones are to like a new, like the S21 Ultra. They're really close, and it's even the iPhone. So I'm gonna do a video about that because the image quality, it is close. It's not as close as far as apart as you would think it is. So image quality is still excellent on this phone. You also have a 3,500 milliamp battery with 25-watt charging, along with wireless charging at 12 watts and reverse wireless charging at 4.5 watts. So battery life on here is actually pretty decent. It's not crazy good, but I was able to get through the day with this phone, like I said. But if you want a Note phone and you want it to be kind of compact-ish, this is also a great device to consider. Last is going to be the Pixel 4a 5G, which actually has come down in price to around $320. So I was really surprised to see that because they had the price jacked up to almost like $400 for a refurbished version, which I thought was insane. But yeah, so this is a really nice mid-ranger with a above average camera. Still, in my opinion, a flagship quality camera. It has a sort of, really basic design. It's kind of like the least appealing design on the list, I guess. It's plastic. It's not, anything you would take a second look at. But it has a 6.2-inch OLED display, 1080p 413 for the PPI. I really like the display. It's very colorful. Also, you get the punch hole. So I had no issues here. The selling point with this phone is Android 12, and it's going to get updates super fast, and you just get the clean stock version of Android, no bloatware, none of that. It is a really nice, clean experience. Now, you do have the Snapdragon 765G with the Adreno 620. Performance on here is basically on par with like a mid-range phone. You can kind of think of it like the LG Velvet. It's not going to like max stuff out, but you can play games on here just fine for a casual, session. Also, performance on here is very speedy. I did not notice really any lag or anything like that, so that's why I'm always impressed with these Pixel phones. No SD card support, 128 gigs of internal storage, 6 gigs of RAM. Crazy sounding stereo speakers. I mean, super loud, excellent bass quality. Some of my favorites in a mid-range game. You also have a headphone jack. NFC is on board. Fingerprint scanner is rear mounted on the back. It works fantastic. The cameras are definitely the highlight here. 12.2 megapixel standard and a 16 megapixel ultra wide, 4K 60, 8 megapixel selfie, 1080p. Basically, in my opinion, still flagship quality cameras. Does an excellent job in low light as well. It just gives you some beautiful shots here. I mean, I'm always impressed with the Pixel phones, especially this mid-range. So you're just gonna get awesome image quality, great dynamic range, great color signs, just an awesome photo taker. So that is pretty much it, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you guys in the next one.